This presentation is on classroom assessment techniques based on the book with the same title by Angelo and Cross. Why use classroom assessment techniques? The purpose of classroom assessment techniques is to bridge the gap between teaching and learning. As they are formative, ongoing assessment techniques, as a professor, you're able to gauge the extent of student learning before a graded or an assessed assignment. Additional characteristics include being learning-centered and teacher-directed. They're mutually beneficial. They're content-specific and rooted in good teaching practice. They come in a variety of categories: knowledge and skills, learner attitudes, values, and self-awareness, learner reactions to instruction. Basically, if there's a skill or an ability that you would like to measure about your students or to work on helping them learn, there's an assessment technique that you can find and use. A common tool is the minute paper. This purpose is to provide quick feedback to the professor to allow him or her to adjust instruction. Additionally, it forces students to think about what is important or significant from the course. It's often used in lecture courses, large classes, and courses that frequently present new information. How do you do a minute paper? 5 minutes before the class is over, professors ask students to respond to a variation of the following questions. What was the most important thing you learned during this class? What important question remains unanswered? Students then respond on an index card or half sheet of paper and hand it in. The professor then tabulates the responses and makes notes of useful comments. And then he or she addresses the gaps of learning or recurring questions for the next class session. That's an example of a quick classroom assessment technique. Other quick assessment techniques include focused listening, where students are told after a lecture, "Tell me the important points about this topic that we just covered." Or to assess skills in analysis and critical thinking, a categorizing grid, defining features grid, or pros and cons grid might be used. A categorizing grid has students do some type of matching. Defining features, it has them identify if those features are or are not within a particular topic. And assessing student learners' values and self-awareness is punctuated lectures, where a lecture is cut short and students are given the opportunity to reflect on how attentive they were and what not was helping them learn. Time-consuming classroom assessment techniques would be profiles of admirable individuals. This is where students would write a report or paper on somebody that they admire, and this allows the professor to identify the values that students have. Everyday ethical dilemmas has a similar idea, where you are able to see as a professor what values the students have. But this can also show students each other's values, and it also allows you to see how students would apply those values. To assess course-related skills, a paper or project prospectus might be a useful tool in order to have students have some type of scaffolding before they're actually working on their paper or project to better direct them and have them produce a better result. Productive study time logs is a useful tool when you have students complaining about the time spent studying. It helps you determine if it's a legitimate complaint. More information about each of these classroom assessment techniques and a variety of others are presented in the book. Each technique is presented with the following components: a description, purpose, related teaching goals, suggestions for use, examples, step-by-step procedures, turning the data you collect into useful information, pros, cons, and caveats. Successful use of classroom assessment techniques is due to active instructor engagement in student learning. And the model is based on 7 assumptions, one of which is that classroom assessment techniques don't require specialized training. But it also is based on the idea that the quality of learning is related to the quality of teaching. Therefore, goals and objectives should be explicit and feedback should be specific. While improvement is best based on faculty-derived questions, you're also able to collaborate with colleagues and students. Hopefully this presentation is found helpful and useful, and maybe you have more questions on other techniques you can use. Many more techniques, including examples and successful uses, are available in the book Classroom Assessment Techniques, which can be found in the library.